Okay, here we go. Helen, welcome to the show.
Morning, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you. Helen, thank you so much for taking the time today to have a chat. I reached out to some of my members and some of the people that listen to the podcast and asked who they would like to hear. And your name came up a couple of times. And I thought, that would be brilliant for you to come
No
on.
pressure.
I think from what they were talking about, and this is obviously what we're going to get into detail on today, your journey over the last couple of years has really resonated with them in terms of, these people are living in Dubai, living busy lifestyles with families, jobs, that type of stuff. So it's going to be very surreal for me today interviewing you, because I hear you introducing and interviewing people on the radio on a day-to-day basis.
Massive apologies if we do end up switching roles and you find yourself being interviewed and analysed at some point during the podcast. I can't help it.
That's okay. All right. So before we get started then, obviously a lot of people who listen to Dubai Eye, who follow you on social media, will know who you are. But for people perhaps like in the UK, place like that, would you mind just introducing yourself?
Yeah, of course. My name's Helen Farmer, formerly Spearman. I've been in Dubai for about 13 and a half years now. So I moved over when I was in my kind of early mid-20s and worked then in publishing and then got into magazines. And then because I did broadcasting at university, started doing more and more radio, almost as a guest. So I was going on as like the editor of a magazine, talking about what was happening out and about. And then started doing more and more radio. So now I have the afternoon show on Dubai Eye, which is weekdays, 2 till 5. Where we cover off all sorts of different things: parenting, business, lots of film and food, and about life in the UAE really, and lots of community chat and hearing people's stories, which I really really enjoy. Which is why I think we always like to hear that personal side, which is why I think your podcast is resonates with so many people. So on the personal side, I've been with my husband. We just had our 10-year first date anniversary. So we met on a blind date.
So funny story as well. We were supposed to do this one last week on Monday. We had to reschedule. That was my first wedding anniversary on the Monday. So it's lucky.
Oh, congratulations to you.
Yeah, thank you.
So yeah, I think people talk about meeting people in Dubai is really hard, but Dubai's been really, really good to me in terms of both career and both personal life. And I've got 2 dogs, so you might get a little extra guest today. This is Lucy. And I've got 2 kids. I've got 2 daughters, Phoebe, who's 5, and Tabitha, who is, they're 5.5 and 3.5. So they're both at gymnastics camp this morning. Loretta, who's just walked past. Loretta's been with us since just before I had Phoebe, actually, and she's a big part of the reason I can go to work and find time for the gym and, get the headspace and the confidence to get some kind of semblance of balance, if that makes sense. So I guess when you think about social media, I started writing about parenthood about 6 months after my first daughter was born. And that was really to address the fact there was a bit of a gap in that market, in the sense that there was a lot of women talking about like the really glamorous side to Dubai, and my children do this and we pay for that, and my children wear 5,000 dirham baby Dior dresses, and I'm like, where's the mother care? So I started the blog called The Mothership, which in honesty, I've always been a writer, so it was always a way of me dealing with the weirdness and the newness of being a mum and making sense of it, but thankfully seemed to get a bit of an understanding and kind of find my people who are also having similar experiences, whether they were working or busy at home with their families, who were just looking for really tried and trusted recommendations, whether that was services or products or people. And now I guess I have a bit of a portfolio career in that I'm on the radio pretty much every day, but I do a lot of blogging and event hosting. Well, used to, not recently. More like webinar hosting now, and try and keep it all in the air with 2 kids and 2 dogs.
Yeah, perfect.
So
I think
busy.
Just knowing your social media as well, following you. We've actually spoke about this in the last probably 3 or 4 shows. It's come up as a topic, social media. We're not going to go down that route today. I think it's great, like the way that you just package it then, that you're trying to give like real life. I know that you do a lot of things, when you post pictures and you say, I don't necessarily want to post this, but I think it's important for people to see. And and those types of things as well. So,
and the same with collaborations and things. Sorry, Lucy, I'm going to put you down. So with, collaborations, I get approached by an awful lot of brands to work together, and I probably do turn down a good 90-95% because I only want to work with companies that I feel like would make sense for my followers, or that they will gain something out of it. And you'd be amazed at the number of companies that want to send free things, and and I just feel like at the minute, let's just calm it down a bit, So I always kind of joke that I'm too tired to be anything but honest, but that is the truth. I don't drink coffee, unfortunately, Joffy. I wish I did. Today, so. I have this.
So, let's take it back to, or a little bit more of a background on your health and fitness journey. From my understanding, and I referenced this just before we went on the call, in terms of, I know you train at F45, you had like quite a recent, almost transformation over the last couple of years. What's the kind of background on your health and fitness?
Well, I was pretty sporty at school. Did a lot of netball, did a lot of hockey, skiing, all that kind of stuff. And then I had a knee injury when I was about 14. Unless I was able to be sporty around that, but I don't know. I think it's quite a common story that people go to university and they're used to being, I was county netball, swim team, blah, blah, blah. Get to university and suddenly everybody's really good. And you kind of go, oh, I'm just not going to do that anymore. And I didn't. So put on quite a lot of weight at university through the usual socializing, pasta bakes, all that kind of stuff. And then kind of really got when I got working and into a good routine after university, things massively sorted themselves out. I was exercising more regularly. I was just eating more sensibly, drinking less. And I lost about 4 stone and then moved to Bahrain with my family, and then moved to Dubai a few months after that. And then, you know what Dubai's like. I was working for a magazine where I was reviewing restaurants, which, is a nice job.
Sounds amazing.
but problematic on the waistline front. But I think a lot of women will understand the baby weight gain is very, very real. Like, I put on about 24 kilos with each of my girls, and I didn't lose all of that weight in between. And then also, you never really know if you're going to have another baby. I was kind of like, oh, well, should I really hardcore it only just to put it all on again? And I probably should have done in retrospect, but that weight just stayed on mostly. And then it was only, as you say, about 2 years ago when my first daughter was about 1, and just thought, I'm lucky enough to have a flexible lifestyle where I'm not having to get up at 6 o'clock in the morning to go to work and be at work for 12 hours. I'm lucky to have Loretta and a supportive husband. I can work in a pretty efficient way to actually do something and stop making excuses. So because I've always enjoyed sport, it's just been a case of finding something that fits. And over the years, I've done a lot. I did Flywheel, which is now sadly closed. I really loved Flywheel, and seen some trainers. I do have some issues with personal trainers, though.
Okay.
I find it very conversationally awkward.
Yeah.
I feel like, does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely. I feel like, I moved from the UK 7.5 years ago to Dubai to be a personal trainer. I started off with Fitness First, came up right from the very beginning of where I think a lot of people do come through in Dubai. Personal training isn't a thing. Like, I'm from Cornwall in the UK. Like, personal training isn't even a thing there. So to come here, and I mean, I don't want to go down this rabbit hole too much. Like, I am a personal trainer. I do have some clients, but I don't do anywhere near as much as I did before. And I definitely feel like there's this massive gap where people go, I want to get fit and healthy. I'm going to go and get a personal trainer. When there's all these other things in between, that cost a lot less and be more.
I might suit you and your personality a lot more. And I think for personal trainers, there is a huge number of people where that really does work. To go to someone, 3 times a week where you have that dedicated time, and you've got some, especially if you're doing rehab. And I am seeing Keith and Melly Farrell from the physical training company about rehab around my ongoing knee issue. But for me, it's not the spend versus success. It doesn't make sense to me. And because, as I said, I'm used to talking to people for a living. Thought of being with someone in the gym for an hour, and I'm like, tell me about your mother. Like that. Like, why are we talking? But I think for me, like my biggest advice would be for people to find something that does work for them. And that could be absolutely anything. And for me, F45 it opened and I was like, what's that place? And saw lots of really, really fit looking people going in and out and thought, that's not for me. That's not my vibe.
This is one of the first barriers as well, right? That we'll get into on this one is, actually just that initial process and getting into somewhere and saying, that's not for me because I'm not good enough for that yet. When in reality, listen, I'm still a CrossFit coach now. CrossFit has a very similar vibe to what F45 does in terms of it's like a group community class.
Functional, yeah.
Scalable, functional movements. Coaches are there to coach, not to do the workout with you. So I definitely get that. And you often find, like you've gone through that process of F45, and it'd be the same with a CrossFit gym. If you can get someone in through the door and you can give them a good enough, a nice enough experience that they go, I actually enjoyed that. That's normally the key then.
And often it's not just about the exercise, as you say, it's about that community feel. It's about feeling welcomed and feeling valued and feeling listened to. And for me, it's yes, exercise is fantastic, and I do actually feel great after it most of the time. But it is that often that feeling of connection that people do get out of going to classes. So with it being, when I say around the corner, it's literally a 2-minute walk from my house. And I sent them a message on Instagram when it first opened and said, hi, what's it all about? I weigh blah, blah, blah. I haven't worked out since having my first baby. And they were like, come in. And it took me a full year to actually go through the door.
Yeah.
And I'd lost, by that point, about 20 kilos probably through walking and diet. And walking through those doors, they just could not have been nicer. They really got it. And because everything could be modified, they were really good on messages saying, come on a Monday and a Wednesday, which are weights classes, like the cardio is probably a bit, full on for your first few sessions. Come on this day, so-and-so will meet you at the door, we'll talk you through everything. And it was just a really positive experience from the beginning, to be honest. But that's not me saying F45 is for everybody, because it absolutely isn't. You just need to try different things to find what fits, but the trying is often the hardest bit, as you say, getting through the door.
Well, I think you've nailed 2 points there on why F45 might work for you. One, it's next door to your house. That's probably one of the biggest barriers to exercise. Having
absolutely
to travel somewhere to go and do it is a big one. Can you park there? All those little things that you don't think about.
Definitely. And the parking and timing. Yeah. There's a 6 o'clock, there's 7 o'clock, there's an 8 o'clock, there's 9 o'clock, all of these different times. So I could go, if I wake up early, I might be able to squeeze in a 6 o'clock, or I'll book 7 o'clock this week. Or if the kids have got drop off, I can race back from school and make it to the 8:45. There's so many different options. But I am the queen of self-justification. I can be like, if I'm tired, then it's probably not safe to exercise, so I might drop something on my foot. Or surely sleep is more important right now. Or I really should spend more time with the girls this morning. Maybe I'll just cancel that. And that still happens. Of course it does. I thought about it this morning. But when you start to see results and you start to look forward to seeing the same people, then the momentum gathers, I guess.
Well, that's one of the things I wanted to ask you was about, obviously we're going to go over your biggest challenges, just some things that stick out for you, particularly being a parent, having a job, all those types of things. But also, what challenges do you still face now? Because I feel like people have this, picture of, especially trainers and coaches, exercise is easy for them. But I still do that as well. Wake up in the morning and go, I don't really
bothered
today. So you still face those challenges as well.
Of course. Just when you are getting into momentum, then lockdown happens, right?
Yeah.
And I was doing maybe 3 or 4 classes a week at F45, and maybe a yoga session, maybe some kind of swim, and then lockdown kicks in and all of your anchors, all of your routines are taken away from you. And that's really challenging, because you're looking around the world being like, well, they're doing this home workout and they are just on the sofa and they're calling it self-care. And what do I want to do? Where's my comfort? What do I want to achieve? And we were really lucky in Dubai, and that the weather was actually quite nice when it kind of kicked in March time. So we're lucky enough to have a little garden just here, and the yoga mat came out, and F45 started doing some Zoom sessions a couple of times a day, morning session and evening session, where you didn't need any equipment. It was all body weight stuff. So I was doing a few of those I spoke to Keith, and he sent me a few workouts from his place in Dublin. And then the joys of the internet, right? Started going, oh, I quite like that on Instagram. Oh, maybe I could try doing that. Oh, I'll buy a kettlebell. And you find a different groove. But again, it's not easy to do that.
Yeah, it was actually just great over, well, it wasn't great, the situation, but just seeing how the fitness industry responded to that as well. And I don't just mean coaches, I mean people who go and do fitness as well. People, rather than just lying down and going, I can't do anything anymore. I actually saw the opposite with a lot of my members. Our training, because I track weekly training through calories, that type of stuff, and I actually saw that training went up. And you think about what actually, the barrier of time went away because we had time to do it then. The barrier of not having a facility or having equipment wasn't there anymore, but we just went, do you know what, we can do something. And so many people. And
then you've got people being like, I can shower in my own bathroom, or I can stick the kids in front of something for half an hour and I can do it. But it's not an easy thing to start. And that's the number of messages I get from people saying, I don't know where to start. I don't want to be the biggest, the weakest in the gym, and how do I get over the mantle thing? And I was like, well, you might just need to do that, because I, for the longest time, was the biggest and the weakest in the gym.
I do notice, obviously, you just mentioned this before, but you know, you're always plugging in terms of, because obviously that's where you train, and encouraging people to come down and do taster sessions with you and different times and stuff. That's because you know how important it was and how frightened you were of going and doing the first class.
Yeah. I had a woman message me last night saying, I'm going to F45 in Abu Dhabi. What do I need to know before I go? I'm so scared. And I was like, okay, well, you're going on a Monday, so that's great. Tell them that you're scared. Yeah. Tell them that they're nervous. Like, it's in their interest for you to have a good experience, to have a soft landing, and for you to be able to build and build and build on that. And as I said, everything can be modified. You know, you look at the black kettlebells and be like, oh no, that's not for me. But there's always something you can do. But I do think gym anxiety is very, very real for a lot of people. I think whether that's getting into exercise for the first time, or getting into exercise after an injury, or having a baby, to think that's something that other people do, that's not for me. And I still not sure how to change that mindset in a lot of people, because I can always be like, no, you should. And they're like, no, I'm all right, thanks. I'm just not going to do that. So I don't know what the answer is.
Yeah, just interested to know, like, not necessarily think written down, but did you have, when you did first initially make that step to go in and get into the gym and make those changes, did you have, you know, a vision in mind that you were trying to get to? You know, like we always talk about hot spots and, you know, what is the why and that type of stuff, which is very relevant, but it's just to know whether it's come from your side, someone who's done it.
Do you know what, this sounds like a strange thing to say. I'm not a particularly kind of ambitious person, and in the sense that I don't tie my happiness to achieving goals, and that's professional and personal. I'm very generally just a pretty content person, but I just wanted to feel physically stronger, and obviously lose weight, but be healthy for my kids. And now that I feel like I'm in a position where I'm at, you know, BMI wise, a healthy weight, and I can, you know, do most of the stuff, like pull up still elude me, that I want to do. Now I'm starting to put some goals in place that I can't run. I am shockingly bad at running. So if I can maybe try and do a 5K in the next, and I did it, you know, I've done some, I ran 5K around my garden during lockdown. Wow. If I could do like a 5K race, that was 76 laps of my house, by the way, just for context. It was dizzying. But if I could do like a 5K race, like the Colour Run or something like that, I'd be thrilled. If I could do the 10K in January, I think my head would fall off, because I would love to be the kind of person that is just like, all right, you should do a 10K at the weekend. All right, let's just go. And that's just never been me.
You know what?
And then
funny that you've said, so many people that I chat to on a day-to-day basis have those little goals of like, I just want to be the person who just rocks up and does a 5K or a 10K. Mm-hmm. And they don't necessarily realize that. And when you first start speaking to them, and I'm sure you were the same to begin with, you know, a weight loss goal, which is fine. It's good to have that. But now you're in the mindset where you're like, right, I want to get a pull up. I want to run the 10K. I want to do these types of things. This is when fitness actually gets more exciting, and it gets,
I think so too.
You know, it gets less stressful on yourself, and you start working towards bigger goals than just a weight loss goal. That your weight could change from one day to the next with fluctuations, with, you know, holidays and those types of things, but building towards a pull-up 10K races, they're great goals to have.
There's also talk about Everest Base Camp next year. If I can,
I'm so jealous.
I know.
I'd love
Why
to.
not? Come and do it with us.
That'd be amazing. I've got a few.
Like April, May time.
Later on.
Have you? What's on your list?
Well, my wife's not too happy about it, but I want to row the Atlantic one day in a team of 3 or 4, which takes a lot more preparation and a lot more money.
How do you? Yeah, I was about to say there's cash, and then also how can you prep for that in Dubai? The logistics.
Not too easily. A lot of indoor rowing.
But I think you're right. It starts to get a bit more fun, and you start doing stuff that you actually want to do, rather than being like, got to go to the gym, I've got to grind out, I've got to burn X number of calories to have a deficit today. So at the minute, I literally, as I said, I'm not a kind of big girl person, but last night, because the long weekend was a bit more social than it probably should have been, I was like, right, I'm going to be dry for the next 2 weeks. I'm going to do 4 workouts a week, and that'll be 2 F45s, 1 PT with Keith, and 1 yoga. And that's for now, I think.
People are probably thinking, who's Keith? Keith was actually on the podcast.
Keith has been a guest of yours as well.
Yeah, and that's how I obviously got through to you as well. So thanks for that, Keith. But Keith's great. Obviously, I'm trying to remember what podcast it was, but he did all about injury management and parasympathetic versus sympathetic nervous system. And that's what you're going to him for now with your knee, right?
Yeah, big time. He's a big pain nerd. And I do think having some levels of information is really helpful, because you start to understand why your body and your brain respond in certain ways. And ignorance, yes, can be blissful sometimes. But for me, I like to understand the processes of like, why are we doing this? Why are you telling me to reverse lunge, back and forth and back and forth? But like doing a lunge, for example, that was a really big thing for me for ages, because I just couldn't do it. Because I felt like once I got to a certain depth that my, pain would take over. And that was something, in fact, it was I saw it, because F45 doesn't have mirrors, if that makes sense, so it's a bit strange. But it was only going into his studio a few weeks ago, and I was like, I can do a lunge. God, let's quick take a photo before I collapse onto the floor. So I think through losing weight, I have put some nice kind of, my things going off my WhatsApp. I think it's been great to have these things. Like I was always too heavy to do a skydive, and I did that in December. I got, I don't want to say bullied, but pressured into doing Tough Mudder in November. And that is something I never, ever, ever thought I was going to do, ever. Never mind signing up, never mind getting around it. It was just not, and it was the 10K Tough Mudder. So I have done that, but I am immensely proud of myself for doing that. I wear the t-shirt more than I probably should.
Yeah, so you should. So let's bring us back round a little bit let's take you back to before lockdown, before this craziness happened, because I know you've had to adjust and make changes then. But what did fitness look like for you then, and what things did you have in place for if there's someone who's similar to yourself, has a busy lifestyle, family, social life, that type of stuff, who is looking for just little tips and tricks to help keep them on track, keep them accountable to health and fitness? What sort of stuff have you put in place? Are you big on accountability? Do you literally have the coaches at F45 waiting for you to come in and telling you if you've not come in, that type of stuff?
Well, bear in mind, if you kind of bail on 3 classes, then you can't book another class. So you have there's like a 12-hour cancellation policy, and if you don't hit that 3 times in a row, then
you wouldn't know about that though, right? They've just told you about that.
Has been known over the last year. But I really hate the phrase self-care. I think it's gross. But I've started to realise that exercise isn't punishment, and that has been a big shift for me. And I think every busy parent, mum or dad, can understand that your identity changes so much when you become a parent. And I would say, especially as a mum, if you've carried a baby and you've breastfed, and trying to reclaim your body, both in terms of weight, but in terms of function, and understanding that it's your body, it's not their body anymore, has been a bit of a sea change as well. But now I look forward to doing something, to have that feeling of connection, because I feel like I lost connection with my body for a long time, and I didn't quite. I felt like it was body and brain. I didn't feel like it was coming together, whereas now I listen to my body a lot more, both in terms of digestion and hormones and pains, and I'll wake up and be like, actually, I'm feeling quite energetic, so let's do this, whereas that would never have crossed my mind before. So I think starting slowly for anybody is really, really important. And I was doing a lot of yin yoga, which hugely helped me, because feeling a bit stronger, feeling a bit more connected to my body, and spending time an hour a week where there was no distractions. I didn't have my phone, I didn't have the kids. And it was actually during one of those sessions where I thought, actually, I need to make a serious change, that this is not sustainable. And that was because I'd allowed myself the headspace to actually do that. And I think especially now, you know, I was going to say post-lockdown, but it's really kind of mid-pandemic, we're all so quick to distract ourselves. And I'm definitely guilty of that. If I'm feeling uncomfortable at something, or something's not sitting well, or I've had some bad news, I very rarely sit and go, how am I actually feeling about this? I'm much more likely to scroll on Instagram, or put a podcast on, or, you know, watch some garbage on Netflix, rather than actually thinking, how do I feel about this, and ask myself the questions, not necessarily to deal with it, but to certainly acknowledge it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely. And just the fact that you pointed out that you started off, before you went in and started doing all this high intensity training, and you just mapped out some time in your week that you would go in and do something for yourself, and just...
Yeah, I could walk on the beach track and yoga, that was it.
And contrary to what people believe, like, people always think that they need to work as hard as they can on that first session, or that a trainer's going to shout at them. And, you know, when you go to a first session with me, whether it's a training session or a CrossFit session, or, you know, a group exercise session, I'm like, is this the first time you've exercised in a little while? Yeah, it is. Okay. Right. I want you to just relax. Like, I want you to do a little bit less than what you think your maximum is. And they're like, look,
go at 60%.
Yeah. And I'm almost leading around this landmine field, where I'm going, like, if you go all in here, you're going to get straight on this landmine, and you're going to end up back at the start. We're going to navigate one on one, you know, and that's why coaches and trainers are great for that, right? They've got the experience to be able to push people in the right places, say, yeah, right, this is where you need to push on a little bit. Here's where you might need to tidy up your diet a little bit. Here's where you might need to do a little bit more strength training. But then obviously they can avoid these landmines as well.
And I think an awful lot of people, and myself included now even, are in quite a lot of denial about, you know, eating, drinking, activity. And I know you're wearing a Apple Watch as well. Yeah. So in terms of accountability, yes, you know, the F45 app, or Keith being like, I'll see you tomorrow at 7 a.m, or being sent a Zoom link for a yoga session, all helped. But I do quite like a little bit of data as well.
Helen,
I don't think I'm alone in that.
I'm going to add you to my Slacker tracker. That's what I use to keep.
No!
That will give you data and accountability at its best.
No, not too much. As long as I'm closing the rings.
Yeah.
You know, but silly things like that. But being more, I know this isn't track sleep, which is probably a good thing for me. But even in terms of resting heart rate, you know, being able to notice that coming down over the last year. Mine's not, well, I don't know what I'm at now, 55 or something, but it's not bad. And I'd be able to see that come down, as well as seeing weight come down, or even weight, you know, up and down. I think it is useful. My husband's a big kind of data guy as well, so he's tracking all of his push-ups and everything that he does. And that's not to say I'm like nerding out over the numbers, but there is a certain satisfaction in getting to the end of the day and being like, all right, my watch approves of me.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's really interesting what you said about, obviously I had a busy Eid weekend as well. I think I was hungover for 2 days, like, and just, it's always like a terrible start to the week, but I feel good now. But do you find that you're in a position now where, I always talk about this like on-off switch to health and fitness, where like you can get in this standby mode, and you're quite content with, yeah, you might exercise 3 or 4 times that week. Maybe you only go twice, maybe you go 5 times, but you know that it's happening. And then you can probably, once the motivation gets higher, maybe holiday coming up, or, you know, something, you can just make
base camp.
Yeah, base camp. You can just make that switch, but you know that you're not going to go back to that switch being off. You're just going to get back into what you consider your standby mode.
That is exactly where I'm at right now. And I think I'm on the cusp of standby / taking a bit more action. And that's because, much like you, I had a few dinners out, a few too many, you know, all sorts. and I just need a bit of a kick up the bum. But now I'm in a position to give myself a kick up the bum rather than relying on someone else.
Yeah.
Say, you know, you need to motivate me. I was like, no, I can motivate myself. Like, I know what I need to do. And it's the thing, we all know what we need to do.
Yeah.
The information is out there, the experts are out there. It's being in a position to accept that help or be the one to take that first step or take action. But yeah, I am definitely in kind of like a standby mode now. My diet's like fine.
Yeah.
You know, if I wanted to lose another like 4 or 5 kilos, I'm probably 5 kilos. I probably could stand to do that. But am I going to make myself miserable to do that? Am I going to sacrifice more time with my children to do that? Am I going to let it dictate my life? No, because I'm feeling healthy. I'm much more active than I have been, you know, overall in life. So I'm pretty cool with it, to be honest.
Yeah, I think you've absolutely nailed it there. And like people who listen to this podcast will know that's like one of the things I talk about as well. Like it's okay saying that you want to lose X amount of weight or 6-pack or this, that or the other, but like what does it mean in terms of the rest of your life? And I always talk about like I've been doing this for 12, 13 years now. Like I know how to get to less than 10% body fat, those types of things. Do I want to? Not important.
Yeah, at what price?
I want to go out and have a beer with my friends at the weekend. You know, I want to eat some peanut M&Ms on the sofa. Like all those little things, like they seem so small, but you know, without them, you can lead to a position where you're not necessarily happy then.
Yeah, not really enjoying, and you're kind of going, well, yeah, I can wear these jeans, but I've actually been pretty miserable for the last month, and what's been the point in that? And also, I've got to be very aware of the example I'm setting to my children as well. You know, that's something I'm really conscious of. In terms of, I've got 2 quite picky eaters, much like, I mean, I think everyone really does. But I want them to, you know, see me eating things, you know, trying new foods or making healthy choices, but also being like, oh, should we have this for, you know, should we share some ice cream? Because I don't want them falling into the same traps that I certainly did for a long time about good food and bad food and very, you know, emotional eating.
Yeah.
You know, and I think it's very social media, you know, it's a bit of a slippery slope, especially when it comes to girls and young women. And I'm really trying my best to create a bit of balance around food for them, really.
Like I said at the start, I think you're doing a great job of that.
Thank you.
Right, I just wanted one last point before we wrap it up. And it's kind of just like a general one of a lot of what we spoke about already, but what does health and fitness mean to you now in terms of just thinking back on your journey? I know we've kind of just talked about that standby mode, but what does it mean to you now?
I'm doing like a word association game. What does it mean to me now? It means, do you know what? It actually just means health overall. It means balance, feeling good, feeling capable, and feeling strong. And that's it, really.
You just plucked that out. That was a great one.
And be able to go to Zara and buy a size medium. Doesn't hurt.
Made it relevant now as well.
But I do think it's important to keep having these conversations and hearing from a number of different people who are living life through their own lens and through their own cultures and busyness levels and, you know, all the different factors that we're navigating here in Dubai, because it's a very easy place to get caught up in work and social, or even just like work, gym, social. I think being able to try new things and meet new people is always going to lead to a richer experience. So we just need to be open to that, I guess.
Oh, that's brilliant. Helen, thank you very much we're going to wrap it up there. Thanks very much for taking the time again. And thanks for letting me interview you, because you did cool. You did well.
I got one question in there. Thank you, Jeff. Really appreciate it. All the best.
I'll tag you, obviously, the Mothership on Instagram. I'll tag that in the show notes as well.
Perfect.
Yeah, this episode will be out on Thursday.
Excellent. All right, we'll keep you posted. And anything I can do from my side, just let me know.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Helen.
I'll take a photo for Keith. Hang on.